Calling to order what is the date today? Monday, April 14th meeting of the Board of Library Trustees, 2025. First order of business, do we have anybody online or on the phone for public comment or in person? By the way, this microphone is amazing now. No? All right. Moving on to the next order of business, new trustee introductions. Everybody, welcome Kelly.
Kelly Bacon. Hi. You can tell I'm new. Hi, I'm Kelly Bacon. I've met at least half of you already, and very happy to be here.
Excellent. Next item of business is the ACE Committee update, the ad hoc commemoration establishment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Gregory, and I am the Board of Library Trustees liaison for the ACE Committee. I just want to start by saying, for those who don't know, Andrew Gregory is my husband, just so it's aware, everybody was aware. So basically what's happened so far is we've had 3 meetings for the ACE Committee in January, February, and March. I was elected as the chair, and Ryan Johnstone was elected as the vice chair. We started our February meeting with a basic overview of Bill Russell and his life. We can have all that documentation for you as well. We got a basic overview of an understanding of Mr. Russell's life and his experiences that shaped who he was as a person. There were themes of racism throughout his life in various forms, some overt, like separate sleeping facilities for Black and white athletes and the trash can incidents in Reading, and others were more covert, like growing up in the Jim Crow South. Mr. Russell revolutionized the way that basketball players played defense, opting to jump and leave his feet when coaches wanted him to stay on his feet. Mr. Russell was an 11-time champion and 13 seasons with the Boston Celtics. The committee has set up a basic timeline for the committee to ensure that we get all the work done in the given time frame. In January, we discussed when and how to engage the family. In February, we identified a potential event during which the acknowledgement or our statement of intent can happen, which will be at the Juneteenth event that's held in town. In March, we narrowed down the project scope and identified the town staff to engage with. And we also discussed what acknowledging accountability would look like. And we are seeking community input throughout our meeting, during our last meeting and during our next meeting next week. In April, we will be working on the language of the intent, our statement of intent, and engage with the select board for their thoughts and input. We are looking for community input during this meeting as well. In May, we're going to be looking to finalize the event and engage with the select board to finalize the language that will be used at the Juneteenth event. In June, Juneteenth will happen, and then July through December, we're going to use that time to debrief, to discuss the lessons that we learned, discuss at the event, and look at what future programming could look like and how to pay for that future programming. The committee also discussed easy lifts that would allow the committee to engage with the public, discuss the work of the committee, and gather public input on how they would like to see Bill Russell acknowledged. One of the things that was brought up was a potential book club, where we would meet weekly or monthly, discuss a certain book that discusses Black athletes, Black figures in history, trying to broaden everybody's horizons. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Sorry, just one quick question. Is the Juneteenth event actually on Juneteenth?
No, it'll be the 3rd Saturday in June, I believe. It should be the
21st?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bill wrote a lot of them. He did, actually. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is the Office of Equity Social Justice update. Albert.
Hey, cool. All right, I'll be quick as I can. I'm a talker though, so I'll try to make this quick. Um, so Albert Pless, Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion here for the town of Reading in the Office of Equity and Social Justice, located right here in the town, in the library. Office is right down the hallway there for those who don't know. So I'm just going to give a brief update about kind of where we are with our work, and open up to see if you guys have any questions. So I just go to my next slide. So I always like to just like thank you for as my thank you slide comes up. Thank you for all the above. Thank you first to Amy for her direction. 18 months here. Don't worry about Amy. I can move through it. Don't worry about it. I can slide through it. For her leadership and supporting this work. For those who don't know, this position was kind of placed in the library. It's supposed to be temporary. It's been a little longer than that. My predecessor was here for about a year and a half. I've been here just about a year and a half as well. And so essentially about 3 years total of this work being here. And it's not lost on me around, how much it could be a challenge for those on the board and others of this work sits here because we're still trying to figure out exactly the connection, the full connection between the work of the library and the office. So I think we're still trying to work at that. But thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding around that. I think we'll get there. I think we're trying to be strategic about where ultimately this position should sit. But I think that until then, that patience word, I ask you to be patient with as we're trying to still figure that out. And again, folks like me exist all over the state. There's about 60 of us or so in municipalities, and we all sit in very different places. But I'm the only one that sits in the library. So I'm unique and special. So what have we been up to? We've been busy. I've been busy. We've all been busy since I came on in October 2023. We completed our community needs assessment. This was both on the community side as well as our workforce side. We collected a bunch of good data. The thing I was going to hand out to you in a moment. We have been strategically thinking about our engagement with our town departments. That needs assessment did not come with a strategic plan. There was a dollar amount to that. And I wanted to still stay in the library and be comfortable. If I put that dollar amount, you guys would have kicked me out of here. And so I basically tried to do that work by engaging some local residents who had their own consultant businesses, and we got it really for a really good deal. And that has allowed my office to have a strategic plan, which I think is going to ultimately help with this bigger thing we're trying to do here with the work. And so that process started with engaging about 6 or 7 departments on what their equity focus area would be. And so we talked to DPW, fire, planning, you go down the list. And that initial work was about walking through a process called a results-based accountability method, really basically kind of making sure that we understand the work is going to be continuous. My work over those last 4 months or so has been engaging those departments one-on-one to kind of lead more into that work. Library, sorry, you on the list too, came up, which is library. It's come up with 2 equity-focused areas. Everyone else came up with 1. So we love our libraries, but it's great. And finally, we have been doing something I'm excited about called these listening sessions with our town department town staff. And that's what I'm calling our staff engagement. I think the secret sauce to this work is engaging staff as well as engaging the community in a very proactive way. So I'm excited, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. Just hot off the presses, our next slide is I'm going to be officially appointed the ADA coordinator for the town of Reading. It's a position now that sits with our clerk, and that's kind of been with Laura just because someone had to have it. So she's had it for years. And we, initially when I got here, I had a great conversation about is that something that I could collaborate with her on? And we've moved to the place now, we've put a full proposal to our town manager, and that's been moved towards me becoming the coordinator. And essentially what that does in a great way is it really allows us to be proactive about engaging the community and the workforce around ADA. You know, it isn't something where it's kind of not just a place where we say we have this coordinator, but really where can we begin to engage those who may need services and resources and things like that. So I think it's a great thing for the town. I'm that engagement person, so I think it's gonna be great for what we're trying to do. So more to come around that. You know, I think one of the unique things about this position, just turn it to the next page, you know, I'm inward and outward facing again. So my position works with our town staff, you know, working on kind of systems policy work, but also another piece of it is working on our community side, which I think is a really exciting piece. So not to go down all these verbatim, but we've been active and busy, you know, so I think our PAIR project, Partners and Allies for Inclusive Reading, we're meeting regularly. I think we're engaging a lot of residents. I would say they're Reading residents. I don't know. We don't check their ID when they come in, but we think that people probably would not travel too far outside to come to our meetings. And that's just a way for us to have a hub for people to come in, engage in our work on the community side, actively engage in our MLK events. Those are things I think that maybe some of you have been part of. It's every January. I'm really excited about that. Engage a lot of residents around that. Juneteenth was just mentioned by Taylor before me. Again, this is my third year doing that. This will be my third year. I'm on the front end of it. So Amy took off the umbilical cord. She cut it. And so she was doing all the work before that. Now it's like, I have to do it all. And I was trying to figure out how that, is that okay. That was the plan. Okay. So I can't give back and you can't. So I'm now having to plan all stuff from the beginning. Again, and as we go down the list, again, more just community engagement work, which I'm incredibly excited about. So next page, next slide. Again, just leaning a little more to that strategic work, our municipal work, again, our work around strategic planning. You know, I'm really a great fan of planning department. So really, I jumped right in when our planning department asked me to be part of the MVP project, which is the kind of the climate work in Reading. So I'm a partner with them around that. We're just now identifying what our priority focus area is going to be soon. So you'll more to come around that. Again, these listening sessions, which we did 4 with our town leadership, and then now we're into our third one. Tomorrow will be our third one with our regular staff, like myself. And we're excited about it. Folks are signing up. And really that whole project is really about that needs assessment, which I'm going to pass out to you now, which I think is perfect time. If you can just take one of these cards, it's yours. You'll be the first to have these. Okay, trustees are special. So I want to make sure you guys have these. This was a way, and thanks Michelle for helping to help put this together. These are my talking points, my roadshow. So this is the needs assessment. This is kind of the recommendations, findings from that needs assessment. And essentially, you know, I never want this to sit on the shelf. And so for me, it was really about making sure this stuff came to light, action, and engaging our community and our workforce around these. This is a snapshot. So we collected some data. As you know, with data collection, it's a point in time, right? Well, it's important for me to say, well, all these things still happening. And what can we actually do to actually move the needle along a little bit? So my talking points for that, I have a stand-up, what do you call it, Michelle? A stand-up banner, which I also take around with me for my talking points. It has all those recommendations on them. And the reason why I'm referencing it in this particular slide is that those listening sessions are about myself, and I have a team of colleagues that also workforce colleagues, having sessions for an hour, talking about those kind of things. Talking about, does this stuff still exist? How can we create a sense of belonging, connectivity among us as staff? Again, for me, I feel like it's a secret sauce. If people, even among differences, get time to spend together and talk and discuss things, we're better off. So that's what we're doing listening with that. Next page, or next slide. You know, I am someone that I'm always going to do my work in the town I'm in, but also I love to reach my arm outside that and do work outside of the community, which I think, again, brings, it kind of bring it kind of full fold. So there's 2 things I want to reference around this. One is our statewide work, which is this coalition exists, 60 of us across the state. We created a guide 2 years ago for municipalities to support and onboard these positions. This work, as probably some of you know, I said before, was very reactive 4 years ago, right? Everyone wanted to have a director of diversity and inclusion because no one wanted to be left out. but it wasn't done strategically, okay? It wasn't sustainable. And as you know, it's kind of, even the climate right now is going on, it's because it wasn't strategic. So strategic. This coalition created this guide. We're now working on 2.0. We'll have that done in the fall, which really kind of centers on two aspects. One is what we call the business case for DEI in municipalities, okay? What is that? So that's where we're leaning into that. And the other one is making sure that we are properly telling and demonstrating to municipalities where, back to my original point, these positions should sit, what should be appropriate budgets, all those things. That's the kind of stuff that's going to make it sustainable for the work. So more to come around that. You will have fresh out the presses when we have that guide. You'll get a copy of it electronically as well as a hard copy, so you can have it with that. And thanks, Amy, for allowing me to stretch my arm outside our work here in Reading to do that. I think it's good practice for us to be a part of it, and I've been fortunate to be one of the co-chairs of that work. And finally, I'm really a big fan of Senator Lewis, who's actually our senator for this Reading. He's a Winchester guy where I'm at. Spent a lot of time with him before I came to Reading. And he and I have been engaging a lot of this work around just making sure we create what we call these welcoming communities. There was an event that happened about a few months ago. What date was that? November. Really where I think we were kicked off this kind of welcome committee kind of field, and I think more to come around that. So again, Senator Lewis is a big fan of our work, and I'm a big fan of his. So next two slides. Oh, and I just want to go back to, okay, that's fine. There. I'm a picture guy. I love to take pictures, right? So these are two pictures where I think I really demonstrate a lot of like what I think I'm trying to build with Reading, but also where I feel like we can go. So the first picture down here on the bottom that's one of our largest listening sessions with our leadership. Okay. And again, it's not lost to me the fact that people are taking time away from their day jobs. Our police chief, our fire chief, our assistant town manager, they are taking time, trusting this process, coming to a listening session. So I'd say, and I'm a big believer, if you don't have a picture, it didn't exist, right? So that's a picture of all us, and I took a picture of each session. And over there at the high school where we were doing these listening sessions, we had, again, about 167 youth that we did over 8 affinity groups. Those youth actually, again, trusted a process for us, bringing them together to have conversations, difficult, hard conversations about engaging and belonging. So again, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and I want to make sure that I'm highlighting that work. One of the first partners I reached out to was our superintendent here, Tom. And again, he opened the door wide open for our engagement in that work. So next slide. So again, active on social media, all the 3 kind of big buckets, Facebook, Instagram, and we have a website. We're still trying to actively get up and move it. It's up, but we still have some work to do with it. Have a couple of amazing volunteers. One's a high school student, freshman here at Reading High, and the other one is a resident who just found us, found the library. Thanks, Megan, for getting her through the process, because she is an amazing asset for her. We're gonna have our newsletter coming out tomorrow for the municipal side as well as the community. So she's been really active around that. So last slide. So again, we have some goals to kind of continue to move the needles. The biggest thing right now is, again, staff and community engagement. I mean, this is where this work happens at. I've had a lot of great meetings, had a great meeting this morning with one of the school committee members. And really, I think for me, it's about making sure that we are taking that information on that card and having active conversation about it. And the other thing too is continue to collect data, right? Can't let that data that we collected a year and a half ago become the data that informs us. So again, I'm working on something that I have a proposal in place, which is essentially, again, that term DEI dashboard. We say collecting some data around that, continue to collect data that we can begin to measure and look at, our success. So that's it for me. My last slide, again, pictures are worth 1,000 words for me. So this was one of our largest affinity groups that we did at the high school. And so again, I would say that when we first started that session, all those heads were down in that room. They were looking at their phones, no engagement. 15 minutes in, you have them robust conversation, people just engaging across the room, And again, a lot of this, for me, and I'm a big believer, I'm a men's health guy for 20 years. If you ask people a question, engage them, they will give you an answer. So I believe that. So we engage them in conversations that matter to them. So that's it. So more to come around that. I'm done. I know that was a little longer maybe than you thought I would be. Any questions for the work I'm doing? Anything I can answer while I'm up?
Just wondering if you can speak a little bit more about how you're working with town HR to expand the pipeline for employee hiring.
Yeah, so Sean Donahue, our HR director, he and I have an incredibly great working relationship. I think that was one of the first departments I connected with, and I was here. As you know, it's really, and I'll take 2 steps back to answer the question. I answer in a short way. I think we have to just continue to be thoughtful and mindful about how we do that, particularly with the climate that's happening now around maybe potentially kind of, identifying certain people over others. So I think that we understand that there's a need and I would say a need to diversify our workforce, and that's across the board. And we heard that loud in needs assessment, not just race and ethnicity, but gender. So we just have to really be thoughtful about that. And I think we are being thoughtful about that pipeline. I think Sean and his team do a great job of really posting things in places where multiple eyes can see it. But we know with this work, it requires a lot of intentionality. Again, our workforce is not a very racially and ethnically diverse workforce, and we know that. That's a lot of what we have to do that. We have to do it in a way, I think, that doesn't put what do you call it, a bullseye on the back, to make sure that we're doing things by quote and stuff like that. We have to stay away from that stuff. And so, not that we ever did that anyway, but I think we have to be very mindful of that. That's the elephant in the room. Well, listen, my door is always open for you guys. I mean, again, I want to thank you for continuing to support me. Some of you may be looking saying, well, gee, what does it look like? But I really appreciate you guys supporting me. I realize it could be challenging, and I want to make sure I'm answering any questions that you may have. Again, I'm a email away or a phone call away, or just even come by and have a cup of coffee if you want to. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very
I'll just
much.
add, and thank you very much, Albert. I'll just add that Albert is also doing office hours over at the town hall a couple times a week. And he's working with, he gets a room over there reserved. It's different hours each month as the rooms are available. And so his being available is, I mean, I would say from what I've heard, these meetings, these updates and things are great, and the large affinity groups are great, but you've also had a lot of meaningful conversations of people just knocking on the door and wanting to have just really talk about stuff. And I think there's not a lot of places that you can do that, and particularly in a municipal organization. So it's a really beneficial for both for staff and for the community members who come to see Albert.
Thank you. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is Reading Public Library Citizen Kids Collection Request for the Reading Food Pantry.
That is actually all done, and they did their work. Citizens Kids is a small student group, kids group in that's working up in the children's room, and they did a project that ended up getting donations to the food pantry. So it's all done, and they were trying to be very official, and they wrote this really sweet little note and didn't realize they wrote it right after the other meeting.
I love the
So-
signatures.
Oh, it was really, yeah, it was. And they took their responsibility very seriously, it's why it's a great program. Last year they did a town forest cleanup, and I can't remember which day it was, but they pick a project each year to work on so that they can better the community.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Citizen Kids. Next item on the agenda, discussion and vote updates to the patron rights and responsibilities policy, which I believe we went over.
So we reviewed the changes last month. There are two. The first one to the rights and responsibilities changes was really just to acknowledge the change in our policy. We used to have I can't remember the old name of it. What was the name of it? It was a children's, unattended children's policy, unattended child policy. And last year, the trustees got rid of that policy and replaced it with something called policy regarding minors, which is basically the responsibilities of adults. And so we had to go through and look at all of our other policies that referenced the former policy, and this is just basically a word change, title change. But it needs to be amended. And you can, I guess we'll have to have a vote or discussion and making sure we don't forget Andrew Gregory online.
As presented. Move to approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, starting with Mr. Gregory.
Yes.
Yes. Monette? Wait. No, totally fine.
So the First Amendment was always, was this, I remember the Patrons' Rights and Responsibilities edits. Was the First Amendment, is that separate? Does it end before then, or is this part of the same?
There are two policies that are up for approval. The first one was just addressing the title change or the policy name change. The second one, which is the policy regarding minors, was the addition of language regarding the tween space. So I believe we're just talking about the first policy right now.
Right.
That's the one we discussed last meeting or 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, yes.
Just drawing a blank on that.
The unattended children title. Sorry. So now just to make sure, are we voting on the changes for both policies on this vote, or do I need two separate votes?
That would be up to the person who made them move.
I sort of meant it to be both since one of it is so simple. I don't think it has its own vote.
So the move,
The move is.
Motion.
Motion is for both
Okay.
policies.
Just so we're clear. Perfect. I don't think we need a second. We have a yes. Monette?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
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 And I'm a yes. Policy passes. Excellent. Back up to the list here. Next item on the agenda is the discussion vote. Wait, we did both. So financial report.
okay. Just to report, our liaison, our FinCom liaison, Joe Donna, is in the room. Thank you very much for liaising with us. The presentation to FinCom on March 12th went very smoothly. And I just wanted to note that the FY26 budget does include FinCom's approved use of $4 million for that particular budget. Sorry, 4.26 million of free cash for this particular budget. And I also just wanted to, I'm sure you've all heard, but it's another elephant in the room, which is for us to talk about and just get on the table. There actually will be now, assuming all goes well with town meeting, an election on May 13th to approve debt exclusions for the new Killam School and a new community center for active living that will replace the Pleasant Street Center. The timing of these projects is important because in addition to these, assuming one or both or whatever, neither passes, despite these, at some point in the next few years, we will, based on that free cash usage, eventually need to have an override vote before the town so that we can reduce that free cash usage. So if that doesn't pass, we're just looking at a few years, a few lean years. So it's just something to be aware of. The federal cuts that we've discussed before don't actually impact our daily operations because those are locally funded. It impacts other larger things. But I'm just saying that it's going to be an interesting few years. There are many libraries that are facing a lot of budget cuts this year, and we are not. We're very fortunate in this town.
What's the time frame on the override if it's needed? It would be years out, right? Because we have to use free cash for.
Yeah, I think it's very iffy. I would.
He's talking about the actual override.
No. Sorry.
So maybe 27, 28.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When was the last time our town had a override vote?
2018, 18, yeah.
It was 18?
And yeah. It was only supposed to last 5 years, by the way. So we've done really well with that.
Right.
So just for those listening at home, there's an impact calculator on the Reading website for both of those projects. Library ends this summer. It's paid off, yeah. So that's good. Thanks, Joe.
Excellent, thank you.
And we mentioned it as being the Killam and the senior center. Those are one project, right? The two,
Two separate.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's, the RISE is what's going to be included in the Killam School, yeah.
Yeah, and the Killam, I mean, not to go too deep into the weeds, but that's been going on for like 4 or 5 years. And then the recal has been also at least 3 years, I know. So these are not, these are projects that have been in the pipeline for a while, and they've mentioned at town meeting and they've had presentation and, but it's a tough time to have a lot of growth.
Amy, can you speak a little bit to cuts at the federal level?
Yes, so there are, did I include any of that in my director's report? Yeah. So I included
and three.
some web links, if you don't mind moving on to the, I mean, or blending our director and financial report. The funding cuts, you can visit the Mass Board of Library Commissioners directly and get how the impact of cuts to the Institute for Museum and Library Services will affect them. There are certain things that are very vague because things that are statutorily required must continue to go forward. But there's some of those things are, it's a little unclear as to how much needs to be funded, et cetera. But the state does pay for a lot of databases. It pays for an ebook program. It pays for the talking book program. It pays for the Center for the Book. So there's a number of programs that are statewide that we all take advantage of. Massachusetts is a little different than other states. Other states have more county systems and they can leverage larger populations for their contracts. So Massachusetts, we do everything by town. And we try and get into consortium and we can get a little leveraging on some of those contracts. And then we rely on the state for even larger contracts, which get us reasonably priced content. So ultimately, it would really, and we also get grants from them. So they have, I can't remember how many $1 million of grants they get per year, but I did include over the last 20 years, we've taken advantage of those grants pretty much every other year. And whether it's $5,000 or $20,000, it's money that we do things that we just can't do on our operational budget. So all of that goes away. Things like our Rooted in Reading grant, that goes away. We've already been paid for that, but future grants like that could be lost. And those are, they're smaller than federal awards for, building a highway or, or other large infrastructure things. But considering most libraries are 1% of their municipal budget, $5,000 is an incredible gift, the ability to do things that you just can't do with a regular municipal budget. So those small dollar amounts are really, really meaningful. The Institute of Museum and Library Services, the IMLS, is 0.0046% of the federal budget. It's about 87 cents per person. So it's a very, very, very small part of the federal budget that it's the only thing that supports museums and libraries.
I guess two things. One, this is helpful on the federal side. I think the bigger question is if these are permanent changes, then the impact on the state side budget, because the states are going to be absorbing not just library expenses, but a lot of other things that the federal. So I think we need to be aware of that. I will also say, just to anyone, the MBLC and others have a lot of data on their website. We do get regular emails to them into the Bolt mailbox. We don't typically send those around because it's literally a couple a week with resources. But I guess if there are ever resources you're interested in, you could let me know or let Amy know, or just kind of go to the website. I don't want to start forwarding like more spam. But if there's ever a moment you're like, hey, what's the story about that? They really are very up to date with data and information, and in some cases advocacy materials.
Excellent.
Are there any other questions about the financial implications?
I will note there has been litigation started against to block the executive action, but it's in its infancy.
If there's nothing else in finance, I'll go ahead and there's a quick gifts report, and we did receive our money from the Reading Cultural Council. Thanks, that was Albert's grant. So going on to the director's report, I just included a headline. Stoneham Finance and Advisory Board met on April 3rd, and it included a proposal to eliminate all funding for the Stoneham Public Library in the upcoming budget year. I believe Stoneham is considering a second override attempt for a smaller amount of money, and the hope is that they'll have enough to keep the library open, at least at kind of, in some sort of waiver state, I think is the best way to put it. When it comes to certification, I've never actually seen a library that just closed, which is a little bit different than being decertified. It's just gone. I don't know what happens to that. And I think Noble is working with that. So it's a little unclear what's going to happen in that situation. If they're able to have enough money to maintain their membership in Noble, which is basically all of their data, all of their catalog records, all of their patron records, and if they're able to have some sort of a building and some sort of a staff, even if they're not certified, they can apply and get a waiver, or they can lose their certification, but they would still exist as a library. They are not the only library in Noble facing these budget cuts. I think I mentioned that earlier, and I think there are other municipalities throughout the state that are also facing some severe budget cuts this year. To that end, I did include some information about our current policy on access to or by people from communities with decertified libraries. I think it's really important to review that. We don't have to do anything about it, but in the event that one or more of our local libraries are decertified and or, someone from the Boston area, so our community from Western Massachusetts, if they want to come out and their library is not certified, we do have very specific rules, a very specific policy. The policy is based and backed up both by Massachusetts law and by the MBLC regulations, and it is meant to help municipalities be responsible and good stewards to their libraries. So our policy just says that if a library is decertified, not if it has a waiver. If it has a waiver, we can still provide services, I believe. But if it's decertified, then they cannot borrow our materials, and that would translate to anything that they would need to use a library card for, basically. It's a little, at the time these policies were written, things like your overdrive account were linked, it's like basically an electronic card, they didn't exist. So there's still some questions about how to deal with that, and can we cut them off? Can we block certain cards? But it is about materials. Our policy does not address any other services such as programs. It specifically says that we welcome people. You're welcome to come in and use all the materials. You can read all the materials. You can use the computers. You can pay for prints. You can do all of that. Ask a reference question. It really only pertains to the circulation of our purchase materials.
What does a waiver mean? How do they get, what is the,
A waiver usually means you didn't meet your municipal appropriation requirement, and it's usually a small amount. Like, I think Reading Law had a waiver in 2008 maybe, or 2007, somewhere around the recession, and it was short by like $10,000, so we received a waiver. So it says that the town has made a really good effort,
I see.
haven't quite met it, and we expect you to come back to that number. We expect you to be able to recover.
I also had a question about decertification, and I don't remember if it was you that told me or if I read it, but if Stoneham and/or other libraries that become decertified miraculously come up with the money the day after the decertification happens, they can't be recertified right away, right? They have to wait until full.
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I
They
do
have to
know,
wait till the next fiscal year.
yeah, the process is not a short process.
Right.
You file all of your previous year expenditures and then your current year budget in like October. And then there's a committee at the Mass Board of Library Commissioners that assigns them, but there's 2 rounds. And the first round is like late November, early December. And then the second round is closer to January, February. So I guess if you were to resubmit something, I think, I don't know the answer to this. What I guess would happen though is that Massachusetts wants communities to have working libraries.
Yeah, I would assume so.
So it's not meant to be wholly punitive. It's meant to really be more a carrot than a stick. So I think they would try, and I know Noble is trying everything they can. The executive board has been meeting and the members have been meeting to talk about ways to help support communities that are losing funding.
I just wanted to understand, what's the difference between decertified and your library closes?
Well, decertification, you can be decertified if you're just not open enough hours, if you didn't make your municipal appropriations requirement, if you didn't meet your materials budget requirement, you can lose certification, but you're still you're still open, and if you lose certification, you're not eligible for state aid, you're not eligible for LSTA grants. So it's a slightly different thing. If you were to, I don't understand, actually, I can't wrap my head around what would happen if you closed your library, because I don't know what happens to your physical plan. I don't know, I don't know what happens to your staff that are, pensioned and have union contracts. You have a building full of materials, like what happens to that? The Noble membership, which for us is around $60,000, $55,000 to $60,000 a year, pays for all of the ILS. It pays for Overdrive, it pays for EBSCO, it pays for a lot of different things. If you are unable to make that, if you're unable to maintain your ILS, you have no catalog, you have no patron records, you have, the library cards all just go away. So again, Noble, I think, is trying to figure out a way that hopefully if that were to happen, it would be a temporary thing. So if we were to withdraw from Noble, I do know if we were to withdraw from Noble, we pay a fee. You pay a fee to join, you pay a fee every year to maintain it, and then there is a cost to withdraw. And if we wanted to join a Minuteman or MBLC, if we wanted to join a separate consortium, there are fees for processing all of our data and getting it into a new system and things like that. So
Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out is across the Commonwealth, I hope this isn't true, but I'm thinking it must be, that there are towns that exist today that don't have a public library.
there's 370, well, there's 370 public libraries.
I think there's more municipalities than that in the state.
I think it's pretty close to
Okay.
every single one. Are
Okay.
they all certified? Not necessarily.
Right, but I was just looking at our website, like if you're gonna get a library card from us, what are we actually saying on here? And so if you aren't a resident of Reading, you can still use your hometown card at the Reading Public Library. So a decertified library is still physically exists and you would have a hometown library card. But if a
Yes.
library actually closes, you
Never
can't
seen it.
have a hometown library
Never saw,
card.
never seen that happen before.
So maybe there should be a future agenda item for us to think through if we have an influx. If this happens,
Yeah.
Stoneham or another community near us, and we're gonna have an influx of patrons who are not from Reading, but are from a town that no longer has a library,
Right,
what do we think about that?
right,
We sh-
right. It's, and you're talking about just people physically walking into the building and sitting down.
Yeah, walking in and saying, I want a library card, or,
Isn't it true that anyone can get a Boston Public Library card and
Yeah.
maybe
Okay.
Yes,
that's what we
yes,
need
they
to
would. And
look
I think
into
that that's considered a
order to-
Commonwealth card. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they, that's state or federally funded. So yeah, I'm not sure.
right,
I think
yeah.
it's a little unclear how that would
And
go.
I think Saugus was decertified, what was probably over a decade ago?
Yeah, and I think they may be looking,
Okay.
I think Saugus might be having issues and Linfield might be having
And that was
issues as
pretty
well.
bad at the time,
Yeah.
as I recall.
Yeah. And the library card, we go into the Noble system and we say anything with this prefix or prefixes doesn't
Yep.
run.
Becomes invalid here.
Yeah, and they cannot check it out. So they can come in with their library card, but they can't do anything with their library card. So, but they can read the newspaper and read the magazines.
That raises a question of, do we need to look and modify that language if you've come in with a card for a certified library or something like that?
Yeah.
Just to wonder, I think if we're papering it, but also, I mean, I like our policy.
Yep.
But my worry is if you play out worst case scenario, and the only place I would think this would be an issue, particularly on the service side, is the children's hours that sell out very quickly. And at that point, to have something in place that would prioritize
Right.
Reading residents. So you would have you can't borrow unless you've got a card in a certified library. So if they're not certified, okay, but they want to come in and kind of use it while they're here, that under the current policy, that would be fine. But if all of a sudden we're seeing an influx that's boxing people out, I'd just
Right.
be curious if other libraries, I've seen a lot with our language, but if
Yeah.
other libraries had curtailed.
There's a
on
bunch of,
resident-
on the NBL, what do you call it, NBLC, that there's sample policies
Yeah.
for Northampton, East Long Meadow, Ipswich.
Yeah.
I believe all those went to the lending aspect.
Yeah, there's one library at least that says and services, and it's a little vague because it would depend on whether you use library card for program registration. Not all libraries do that. Some libraries use your library card to register for a computer, which we don't do. So it depends on how you lock down your services. We do require registration for a lot of things, but we don't require a library card. That is different from community to community. And we used to have a few programs that on paper we would say priority was given to Reading residents, but that we haven't had that since well before COVID. And that was for things like the Mother Goose Laps that would fill up, and you'd find 6 families that none of them lived in Reading. So it would be, you'd be automatically put on a wait list if you were in Reading. But so those are definitely good issues to think about. Programming is so much a much bigger part of what we do than it probably was when we, in 2002 or whenever it was that we wrote this policy. At the same time, we also understand that our goal is to reduce as many barriers to service as possible, but we also want to hold our neighbors accountable for their libraries. So it is a tough and heartrending issue at some point. So
Right.
just something to be
I would
aware of.
say, I know Cappy circulated it to me, but the Stoneham kind of page has facts, and to get to your point, it says, well, could we go to Reading and Wakefield? It said, well, no, and it cites the Mass Board of Library Commissioners rule about this, but then has a note at the bottom about Boston being different. So they are providing that, but I do think it's very important to say, here are the rules, and if you can't follow it, there are going to be consequences, unfortunately, but so I'm happy with that we have our policy personally.
Okay, I'll just move on to hopefully happier stuff.
Can I ask a quick question? So
absolutely.
MBLC has explanation of what decertification means.
Okay.
Basically, it says you have to be a certified participant in the state aid to public libraries program. That means you're certified. So if you're not, you are decertified. So you can still remain open. You just don't get state aid. Is that what that means?
Is you don't get state aid and you're not eligible for the, presumably the LSTA grants that we
All
get
right,
from the
so
IMLS.
Basically, the town where this library would open or reopen or recert would have to fund everything themselves. They get nothing. And then according to this, it says that they have to meet the standards after they try to recertify for one complete fiscal year.
Yeah.
Before they can reapply. So it could be quite a while if this does come to pass.
Thank you for that quick processing and reading analysis. Oh, okay. In the meantime, our statistics for March are up there. We had perfectly fine March. It's like everything else. We see a little bit of our physical circulation going down, but our overdrive circulation goes up. So it's nice. We still have a very strong reading community. I just wanted to call out our meeting room rentals went way up this last month, which is exciting. I think it's great to see more community members.
Was it a
and-
bunch of new meetings or new people or was
Um,
it?
I think some of it was actually, we hosted a lot of town meetings as well. There was some work being done, I think, in the select board room, so over at town hall. So I think we absorbed some of those meetings. But no, we have other groups that are coming in and using the meeting room, which is great. And next month it could just be 17. I don't know. The other thing is we had a great increase in our volunteer hours, and I'm just going to shout out to Megan particularly, but also Michelle. We do a lot with trying to get people in here doing meaningful volunteer work. There's a lot of busy work we could make up for volunteers, but we try to make it meaningful work. So an example is Lonnie, who's working with Albert. She has an incredible skill set. Michelle was able to get a volunteer in to help us with some tech inventory stuff. And that's what she does for a living. And so it's very organized and it really helps us do our job. And a lot of them are just things that we don't have enough staff to help us do. And so we also had Megan McCabe working with a high school student. She ran a series of programs, STEM with Callie. And the high school student, Megan, worked with her and mentored her on how to plan a program, how to do how are you going to engage the teenagers once they come into the room? What kind of activities are you going to do? How are you going to market it? So that kind of mentoring where it's giving a student, in this particular case, a student like basically life skills and leadership hours and things like that. So it's great to be able to make sure that the volunteer program that we have is meaningful. So I just was, it's not always easy to make that fit of people who want to volunteer and fitting them with their skills and their time with someone who has a task that needs to be done. I won't go through the entire list of everything, but we had a very busy, very happy month. We have a new friend up in our children's room. We have Shelvis the turtle. I'm sorry, the tortoise. The tortoise. And we had some really great programming, including the craft swap, and we've had some great exhibits. So we had the 350 girls came in, which was an exhibit showcasing historical artifacts from American female veterans. And in the studio, we've also had 2 exhibits. We had a family of artists that displayed their work in March, and now we have, if you want to stop by, we have a beautiful rug hooking display, in the Mayflower chapter of that group. So I encourage you to stop by and look at all of those things. We're going to have a student display in May, and then we have another art display coming up in June.
I really like the name Shelvis. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm still trying to determine whether it's one L or two, because I've seen it spelled both ways.
Tomato, tomato, still good. I will say all my seeds from the seed library germinated. Every one of them.
Died? No.
No, they all germinated.
Oh, good.
Every one of
I
them.
couldn't hear what you said.
So I got to pay it forward.
Yeah. You will think, I think you may, I don't know if it was in this warrant or the upcoming warrant. We have started our work with our plant management company, Enviro Greenery. We're very excited.
Yeah,
They did
beautiful
an-
on the side of the building.
Inside?
Outside.
Oh,
on
no,
the-
that's outside. That was, that's us. That was
Oh.
last fall.
Oh, the plant
The
management
plant
company,
on
the
the
ones
inside, yeah. So, and they've already, for the plant management company, for the indoor plants, we purchased some new plants from them, and then while they were here, they discovered a couple of our larger plants were suffering, and they will replace those for free. So it's a really, and then they come in every 2 weeks, and they water and clip as needed, and they have, so it's just a big, it's a much better use of our time, staff time, is to have someone who's a professional come in and take care of the indoor plants, because many of them are very unusual, like the fishtail palm and the whatever fig is. I can't remember all of their names, but so we're very excited to have that going on. Also, we had a lot of nice anniversaries this year. I just want to call out Lisa Eng, who's been here for 21 years, and then Eileen Barrett, who's a substitute, sort of retired, but still comes in. She's also been here for 20 years. So a lot of longevity there. As usual, we have a ton of professional development. Oh, and congrats to Megan, yes. A lot of anniversaries this year, month.
I know.
Yeah, I was,
Just
thank you.
wait till they get those meeting notes.
I know. Just also, Michelle's just coming off her past presidency, and Andrea is still on the Intellectual Freedom Committee. As you saw, Olivia's been asked to stand on a national committee. We really do try to support our staff getting involved in local and national leadership positions. So we appreciate your support, because we know it's sometimes hard to balance that. And then just some trustee dates. And that's pretty much all I have, unless you have questions.
Anyone? Any questions? Nope. Excellent. Thank you, Amy. We can move on to the approval of last month's meeting minutes. Does anybody have any questions, updates? Not a motion? Do I have a second? I hear a second. Thank you, Manette. I'll start with Mr. Gregory online.
I missed what the motion was. Can you repeat it?
Oh, approval of the meeting minutes from last month.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Manette,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Pat, Andrew,
Yes.
and it's a yes for me. Future business or future meetings, or scrolling. Future agenda items. Doesn't look like we have any for May. For June, we have summer programming update, election of officers. That's June, right? Yeah, June. And then the trustee meeting dates and the holiday schedule. Anything else? Does anybody?
Just to remind you, because it's better that you think about this now, we will have a proposed schedule for FY26, and it always includes a open to canceling your August meeting should you decide to do so.
Oh, why do we do that? Just for fun? For summer fun times? Excellent. Okay. Does anybody have anything else to add? Any questions this evening? Pat?
Can we, I don't know if it's May or if it's June, but to keep a close eye on the Stoneham Library and
Yeah, we'll be, in fact, I don't know if they'll wait till the meeting. I'll probably send you any updates as we get them. I'm still waiting to find out if they have another election date scheduled yet.
Prior one was April 1st, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I think it sounds like maybe we want to have a conversation about,
the policy,
oh, yeah,
absolutely. We'll put decertification, policy on lending to decertification libraries on the May agenda.
I will point
And
out,
well, and I just want to make sure we're connecting to what Pat said as well, is are we going to reevaluate not only borrowing materials, but attending events? Just kind of looking at all of that, if we want to reconsider how our wording.
Okay, that's good. And Megan's getting all this down. And what I think we can do in the meantime is I will speak to staff, programming staff specifically. I will also talk to our technical services staff who have a better handle on what we need library cards for
Mhm.
and what we do access for. So for example, we have something called Overdrive Advantage that we pay for certain materials on Overdrive that Reading people get first dibs at, and there may be a way we can block, we would have to block that. So we can come back with a little more information on the like the logistics of how we might make something like that work. And then possibly give you a sense of how that's landing with staff, if that's helpful to you.
It is helpful.
Yeah, and then just maybe look at some other policies around the state.
I will say, because I thought the ones I'd looked at were only about lending, but the BB policy applies to borrowing privileges and library services. So
Right.
they decline they have broader language. To your question, what does that mean?
Oh, that's probably why it was on
It
there.
is a little broader.
That makes sense. I was gonna ask- just for, I guess we can add this to May too. Do we know, as far as services today, when people sign up, where they are from in Noble? For example, do we know the percentage of, let's say, a Saturday morning program, how many Stoneham residents?
No.
Okay.
We don't, because we don't really ask for that information.
I would assume so. I just didn't know if it was tied to the library card audit.
Yeah, and then, to your point, I mean, the question of why we don't ask that for information is that our decision is to not collect to not collect any private information if we absolutely don't have to. This board could decide that we absolutely do have to collect that information, and that's a decision that the board can make. But we do have anything, like if you have a sign-in or whatever, and short of public record, we delete those records. We try not to collect that information. We might collect your email so that we can let you know if a program is canceled, but the data privacy thing, it adds sort of another layer of complexity
I
to
didn't even
this.
think of that. Thank you
We want
for
people.
clarifying. It makes sense. Appreciate it. Other than that, do we have any other additions, questions, concerns, thoughts? If not, do we have a motion? We have a second? Second. Yeah. I will start with Monette to mix things up.
Yes.
Kelly? Pat?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. We are adjourned as of 8:03 p.m. Thank you.
Bye, Andrew.
Take care, Andrew. Enjoy whatever country you are in.
Do my best.
What country are you in?
One that's in Europe.
Oh, there we go.